When you take a first glance at the box art for this game, and being mindful of the time that it was released, you could be forgiven for thinking that it was just a simple cash grab, trying to take advantage of the fame achieved by another series based on crime-fighting reptiles. But you'd be selling this title short. My only exposure to Battletoads before 2021 was through an early 2000s meme where people would phone up video game stores and ask if they had a copy of Battletoads for sale. Looking back, it's stupid and childish. But at the time, I found it pretty hilarious, even though I knew it was stupid and childish back then too. I'm not the most competent of gamers. Even calling me somewhat competent is probably giving me too much credit, but over the last few months, I've been trying to push myself to play harder games and see if I can beat them. I had a NES growing up, but I never got very far in any of the games, and beating these titles that I struggled with so much when I was younger has been incredibly satisfying as an adult. So, why Battletoads? Well, the game is known for being brutally hard, and I decided to take it on after beating Battle Kid, a homebrew game for the NES released in 2010, which is again known for being quite difficult. My first few attempts at Battletoads were pretty unsuccessful. I think I'd lost all my continues before reaching the end of the second level, and after being spoiled by games with particularly tight controls, this felt like a real shift. Eventually, I made it to the third level of a game, the Turbo Tunnel, and I was hooked. So, let's talk about the story of Battletoads. Our three heroes are Rash, Zitz, and Pimple. They're escorting Princess Angelica to her home planet. Pimple and Angelica decide to go off for a wander for reasons, when suddenly the pair are attacked by the Dark Queen, the antagonist of the game, who kidnaps the two of them. You take on the role of Rash, but it is possible to have a second player, who plays as Zitz, and you must rescue Pimple and Angelica by making your way through 12 levels, all of which provide a varied and incredibly exciting gameplay experience. So, what kind of game is Battletoads? It's a beat-em-up, but calling it that doesn't do the title full justice. I see the levels as being split into two types. You get levels with a heavy focus on combat and platforming, and then you get levels with a focus on vehicles. There's also two levels that don't really fit into either category that I just mentioned. Those are Level 2, Wookiee Hole, which I believe is named after an area not a million miles away from me, and then Level 10, the Rat Race. The vehicle levels focus on quick reaction times and leave no room for mistakes. And the platforming levels, well, let's just say they're hard. In fact, every level is hard. Every single stage that you reach feels incredibly unique, and on the whole, feels like the difficulty curve increases at a reasonable pace. The first stumbling block that people tend to hit is the Turbo Tunnel. While the Turbo Tunnel is most certainly the first barrier in the game, it took me a few hours to get past it for the first time. If you keep trying, you will eventually master it. And honestly, I don't think I have found a more satisfying level in a game to beat. That being said, whilst Turbo Tunnel is definitely a difficult level, it certainly isn't the hardest in the game. Level 9, Terror Tubes, is the one which I struggled with for what felt like forever. There's a number of enemies in this which I found incredibly tough to deal with. Like, see this thing? That thing too? Also that? Sod them all. That said, this wasn't the most painful experience of the game for me. That would come with the final level, the Revolution. In this level, I encountered enemies that I initially found very tough to deal with, and there was a lot of very tight platforming to boot. That wasn't what made this level painful for me though. After you reach the top of the tower, you're ready for the final fight, with the one and only Dark Queen herself. For people who have beaten the game before, you will know that once you defeat the Dark Queen, she comes up from the bottom of the screen for one final attack, which is pretty easily avoided. Well, on the last life of my last continue, this happened.
Is that it? Is that it? Why is it still going? It's still going.
And I had to do the whole thing over again. So what were my final conclusions on Battletoads? The game is utterly terrific, and is easily one of the best games that I've ever played. The sheer variety in gameplay, character design, and music make it a real standout title, and if you can deal with frequent deaths and heartbreak, I would highly recommend it. I hope you enjoyed my review of Battletoads. If you have, and you would like to see me play games live, you can find me over at twitch.tv/Inday. A link is in the description.